We live in a world that is just obsessed with being online, being connected 24/7. But what if I told you that the most powerful thing you could do is actually to be less available? Today, we're going to dive into this really fascinating, kind of counterintuitive idea, the architecture of absence.
So let's kick things off with what we can call the availability paradox. Our gut instinct, right? At work, in our personal lives, it's to be there, to be helpful, to be responsive. We're the ones answering emails late at night, saying yes to every single meeting invite. But what if that constant, nonstop presence is actually working against you?
Seriously, think about that for a second. Is being the person who's always there making you invisible? It sounds crazy, I know, but it's a really tough question we have to ask ourselves. And the answer might just surprise you because it's all rooted in a super basic economic law.
And that right there brings us to the economics of your own personal value. The secret to why being too available can backfire lies in one of the oldest, most fundamental rules in the book, the law of scarcity. You probably know it as supply and demand.
Okay, so the principle itself is super simple. When something is rare, its value shoots up. When the supply is low, the demand for it, and yeah, its price, just skyrockets. This is the bedrock idea we're going to build everything on today.
Now, here's the big aha moment. This economic law, it doesn't just work for gold bars or diamonds. It applies to you. Your presence, your time, your expertise, those are all resources. So if the supply of you is basically unlimited, what do you think that does to your perceived value?
Look at this, it lays out the two paths so clearly. On one side, you've got high availability. That leads to constant presence, which, ironically, creates low demand and, well, a low perceived value. But on the other side, you've got strategic scarcity, a calculated absence, and that creates high demand and a much, much higher perceived value.
And we're not talking about a tiny difference here. The jump in perceived value when you shift from just being available all the time to being strategically absent is absolutely massive. It fundamentally changes how people see you and what you bring to the table.
So getting your head around this principle is one thing, but actually acting on it, that's a whole other ballgame. This is where we shift from just identifying a problem to finding a real solution. So let's explore what we can call the art of absence, how to turn scarcity into a deliberate strategy. Let's be crystal clear on what this actually means. Strategic absence is not about ignoring people or being flaky and unreliable. Nope. It is the conscious, deliberate choice to make yourself a little less accessible so that you can boost the impact you have when you are present.
And I really want to stress this point. This is not about manipulation or playing mind games with people. It's a total shift in your mindset. It's about you understanding that your time and your energy are finite, valuable resources. And it's about teaching other people to respect them by first respecting them yourself.
Okay, this is where it gets really, really interesting. When you pull back a little bit, you're not just disappearing into thin air. You are actively creating something in your place, a psychological vacuum. You've probably heard the saying, nature abhors a vacuum. Well, turns out, so does the human mind. When your constant input, your constant presence is suddenly gone, it creates this space, a space where people are forced to stop, think, and actually reconsider the value that you provide. So let's break down how this actually works. First, you strategically withdraw. Step 2, this creates that vacuum we talked about. Step 3, that empty space then forces other people to reevaluate your importance. And the final result, you develop what's called a phantom presence. So what on earth is a phantom presence? It's when people actually start to value you more when you're not around. It's wild, right? They begin to realize everything you bring to the table. Your influence is still felt, even when you're not physically or digitally right there. You're talked about, you're missed, and your return is actually something people look forward to.
All right, so how do we actually make this stuff work for us? This isn't just some abstract theory. It's a practical tool you can use. Let's boil this all down to a final takeaway on how you can put the power of absence to work in your own life.
It all starts with a simple audit. Are you just too available? From there, you have to practice saying no, but strategically, to the things that don't serve your main goals. The whole point is to let your value be felt because it's scarce, not by flooding every conversation. At the end of the day, you have to treat your presence like the valuable, finite resource it is. You just can't give it away for free.
And that really brings us to the most crucial point of all, abundance. It can actually lower your value to zero.
If you're giving away your time, your ideas, and your presence like they're nothing, you risk devaluing them completely. But by making them scarce, you make them priceless.
So I'll just leave you with this one question to think about. In your job, maybe on your team, or even in your personal relationships, where could pulling back just a little bit create the most value? The answer to that? Well, that just might be your next power move.